Really rough off-season for the Demons, Caro and Kane, with Clayton Oliver in particular. He played round one. That surprised some on the weekend, Caro. How do you think this sits? It wasn't a great showing from the Demons, to be fair, and Clayton will grow into the season, but is everyone on board with him playing?
Look, I wouldn't say there's certainly not a rift at Melbourne, but there was certainly tension among the team and among some of the senior leaders over Oliver's return to the training group. I mean, his behaviour was clearly appalling. You know, at the end of the season, they looked at trading him, turned up in very, very poor shape to the pre-season camp. Immediately, he was sent home and told he wasn't coming back until he improved his behaviour. Given a wingman within the club to not be a minder so much as a friend, because he needed a friend. And then you've got a leader like Max Gawn who gives second chances, who's a tough leader but is a believer in forgiveness. And then you've got the sort of Viney, Salem, Petrarca players who have found it a little bit harder to trust Clayton Oliver again. And I can understand that. So there is a view in the Melbourne hierarchy that Clayton Oliver could well stuff up again. In fact, probably will. But they say that their culture has changed, because in the old days they would never have dropped him. They insist they will now, and
they didn't drop him though, did they? He hasn't missed a meaningful game.
He only came back into the team after 5 weeks of truly good behaviour and a complete behavioural change. So proof will be in the pudding.
My big thing with that is when you're already in trouble, when you've got 3 or 4 key players who think he shouldn't have come back, some saying, it's fine, how long do you keep a guy out for if he's fit? He's done 8 weeks. So when you're already in that situation, it's hard enough winning a flag as it is. The connection piece is critical. They're an amazing watch this year, Melbourne, because I reckon they're already behind the 8 ball, and you've got different people who think different things about a particular player.
Can we just hear what Gary Pert, the CEO, had to say? Because he was laughed at for saying this.
I've been in the game now for 40 years. Our culture at the club, our men and women's programs, is the best I've seen in 40 years. And that's because of the people, the leadership, the clarity and strength and resilience of that culture. So these behavioural issues will be held to account by those leaders.
I'm afraid, Kane, when you go out in straight sets, in both the men's and the women's, when you're favourite really to win both, certainly the women's, you have to question the culture. Melbourne admit now they were late to the party with Clayton Oliver and his appalling behaviour to his teammates and staff.
So if they'd known what they know now, or some months ago, he wouldn't have said those comments? No,
he only said that recently, and he's saying...
It was before Christmas.
He's saying we've got a great culture because we are now standing up to this bloke. And we're stripping him back, figuratively, stripping him back and not allowing it anymore. And if it happens again, we'll trade him. And they will trade him, and they will get something for him.
Do you think if it was a lesser player that they've gone through the same... So how can you have one culture for your best player and a different culture for a lesser player?
Every team has high-maintenance players. Every team has high-maintenance players that they put up with extra stuff because they're great players. And you would have played with them. You would have played with them. I've seen it at every club I've covered.
Fascinating with Gawn and Grundy, wasn't it? One game, this is overreaction Monday, let's be honest, but it was a statement game from Grundy. It did remind you that he was left out of that team, and players like Josh Shackey got picked ahead of him in the final. And Max Gawn was the one that had almost co-authored the original move to Melbourne. Would he be looking back now wishing he was still there and sending him to a rival club that's in the window like Sydney? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a big reason why he went there, wasn't he, Max Gawn? And some of his comments at the time and through last year are ageing poorly. Let's have a listen to some of those.
I see it working really well. I'm really, really excited. I'm really bullish about the fact it can work. 2-time All-Australian, 2-time Best and Fairest winner for half his salary. It's an amazing get. Come in, Brody. I'm more than happy. If he can help us win a flag, which I think he can. I know he's keen to play, as would anyone that gets shown the door from their former club. As much as he is a laid-back character, I'm sure inside he's going, I want to prove these guys a point. So I'm excited to see what he brings.
Yeah, and in the end, they traded him away for a bag of chips, didn't they? And traded him to a rival contender. They had him under contract for 4 years. Now they have no one to back up Max Gawn. And, Lord, I just think it's an interesting spot that Max Gawn is in. He's renowned as probably one of the strongest leaders we've had in the game since the year 2000. Put him with Selwood, put him with Hodge, put him with these types. But his legacy is somewhat being tested now, I think, with those comments, with his own performances. Can he do it alone when the opposition are going to target him, with everything that's gone on at the footy club with his teammates? How do you see the year.
What do you mean his legacy's being tested?
Well, I think the strongest leaders stand up in these moments. Hutchin, I watched him on the weekend, and I've watched him when he's been tested physically, in particular by Port Adelaide before, and there hasn't been a whole lot of fight in Max Gawn. And then just to go back and the mistake to go and get Grundy, the fact that he thought it could work but it didn't, and that lasted half a season, the issues off the field at the club. I think it is a test for the finish of his career, however long that goes for, in how he's remembered somewhat as a leader.
And I think others can hurt you as well. So I think some of the things that have gone on at Melbourne do hurt you if you're the leaders of that football club. Here was Brodie Grundy after the game talking about what went on at Melbourne, I believe, and how he's feeling at the Sydney Swans.
I just love to compete, and I'm in a side where I can do that for long periods of time, and I just want to be out on the ground and play to my strengths and feel like I can be me out on the field. And the more I can do that, the more I can put myself in positions to show my strengths, then I can leave the ground content.
Your strength is starting to get better.
And he's a content man at the Sydney Swans. I know it's 1 week, but he's going to play the way he played at Collingwood when he first made it big. He made it quicker than any other ruckman that I've seen. Ruckman take 5-6 years. He made it in his second year because he's a competitor. He hasn't been able to play this way. I think the conditions did suit him on the other night when it was slippery and he just competes at ground level. But he'll get back to one of the best ruckmen in the game because he can ruck for 80% of the match which he wants.
Gawn is vulnerable to the off-the-ball stuff, to the McInerney hit there and to what Port Adelaide have done in the past. And if you were playing against Melbourne, as the coach, would you instruct?
He is vulnerable, but it probably happens to him 2 to 3 times
Should
a year.
it happen more, though? Like,
Yes.
will other clubs start to take notice finally?
If you're good enough to do it, yeah.
Quick word on Sydney, your buyer?
I'm a buyer, yeah.
Contender?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.